Okay, good day and good day to everyone, and welcome to today's section. So today we're going to be looking at Module 4, which talks about equipment management. By way of recognition, my name is Dr. Aliu. This program is powered by Pegasus Consultancy. So if you can hear me loud and clear, please type on the comment section. I can hear you. So we have looked at Module 1, Module 2, Module 3. So today we're going to be looking at Module 4, which has to do with equipment management. Okay, thank you. So the learning objective, so at the end of this module, you should be able to list the factor to consider prior to purchasing an equipment for the lab. Next, you should be able to manage the selection and acquisition of the new equipment. Describe the requirement for a preventive maintenance program for an equipment. Next, you should be able to understand how to retire, dispose, and replace an old or an updated equipment in a proper manner. Okay, so by way of introduction, equipment is part of the 12 quality system essentials. By now, we all are conversant with the 12 quality system essential. Please, if you don't know them, please take time to look at them carefully. We have organization, personnel management, equipment, purchase and inventory, we have process management, we have information management, we have document and record, we have non-conforming event management, we have assessment, we have continual improvement, we have customer focus, and we have facility and safety. So today we are going to be looking at equipment. What is the benefit of managing an equipment? Or what do we even understand before that? Let's say, for example, you know, a reader for an analyzer. There isn't a documented procedure for troubleshooting. The maintenance log has not been updated for 2 years, and the manufacturer instructions are missing. What should you do, and what should you have done earlier? Just uh, look at this scenario. I want you to take a pen and a paper. In the next 3 minutes, what do you think should have been done? You're going to share with me at the end of the class. A analyzer reader failed while performing an analyzer test. There isn't a documented procedure for troubleshooting the analyzer. The maintenance log has not been updated for 2 years, and the manufacturer instructions are missing. What should you do and why? What should you have done earlier? So take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, write on a paper, on a pen, on a pad, whatever it is. Answer this question on your what do you think should have been done and what should you have done earlier. So I give you 2 minutes to think about this. Okay, thank you. So next, look at this. We talked about the 12 quality system essential, which I've already explained earlier. Now, what are the benefits of managing an equipment? Please ensure your mic is mute, please. Now, the benefits of managing equipment include, but not limited to one, equipment operate at optimal performance. When your equipment is well managed, it helps the equipment to operate at what? Optimal what? Performance. Number two, it will reduce the turnaround time. Because when you have equipment breakdown, automatically that increases the TAT. And we know that three things define the quality of any lab result. One, the accuracy, the reliability, and the timeliness. So by the time you're not able to manage, or the equipment is not properly managed, it will increase what? The turnaround time. So when the equipment is properly managed, it helps to reduce what? The TAT. It helps to maximize the lifespan of the equipment. It reduces service interruption. So the equipment is properly managed, it won't break down easily, and it won't lead to what? Service interruption. Next, it will also help for greater customer satisfaction. We all know that the whole essence of the quality management system, the whole essence of the process being put in place is to ensure that customer is being what? Satisfied. It also increases what? Safety. Now, equipment management overview. First, you have to assign responsibility for all equipment management activities, example, selection, operation, retiring, and etc. It is expedient that we must train all personnel on the requirement and the maintenance need. Now, every personnel that handles the equipment must be trained, irrespective of the number of years the experience and the categories of personnel. So if a personnel is operating that equipment, that personnel must be trained. Some of us say, oh, is it not done? They bring a new equipment into the facility. Say, oh, no, you don't want to be among those that will be trained, but you want to use it. So the training has to include what? How it should be used and how to maintain the equipment. So monitor equipment management activities, ensure all procedures are well followed, review the record routinely, and update the procedure as such when it is needed. Now, when we talk about the equipment management program, there are a lot of components of the equipment management program. They include installation of the equipment, calibration and performance evaluation of that equipment. They include maintenance, troubleshooting, service and repair, retiring and disposal, and selection and acquisition. Now, so when these things are being put in place, these are the sum total of what? The equipment management program. Selection and acquisition, installation, calibration, performance, maintenance, troubleshooting, service repair, retiring what, and disposal. You can see that this is a complete cycle, a complete life cycle of an equipment. So these are the key components of what? An equipment management what? Program. Now let's go. Now let's look at the first one, selecting and acquiring equipment. Equipment needs and facilities requirements. So when you want to select and acquire a new equipment, you need to look at the equipment need and the facility requirement. What is the performance characteristics of that equipment? Performance characteristics of the equipment has to do what? With the quality performance, what the equipment is capable of doing. Now, what will be the cost of the equipment, the services, the maintenance? Next, you need to also look at reagent availability, the cost of reagent and the safety of that reagent. What is the length of warranty? What are the language options? And is it easy to use? Then also you need to also look at your space and the environmental condition. There are some facilities that have bought an equipment that the equipment cannot enter the facility. The equipment is bigger than the space. And today, the equipment is relying on the corridor or somewhere else. Why? Because space and environmental conditions were not put in place. Now, What are the options for acquiring equipment? When you want to acquire equipment, what are these options? You could lease the equipment. You could get equipment from lease. You could get equipment from rent. Okay, when we're talking about leasing, it could be equipment eventually become yours maybe after a period of time. Rent, you could say, okay, like equipment never becomes yours and is returned. Equipment can be donated. Equipment can be placed. Placement is like, for example, they bring the equipment and you buy a reagent. By the time you buy the reagent, so the company place that equipment, or the vendor or the supplier, distributor place that equipment in your facility, and you pay, you buy reagent. At the end of the day, the equipment becomes the equipment is for the organization that place it. Then we have outright purchase. Outright purchase is where you are buying it and you are paying for it. And the payment could be instrumental, depending on the agreement. The payment could be a one-time or payment. Now, what are the options for purchasing an equipment? Okay, equipment can be purchased through central acquisition. There are some organizations that purchases centrally, so they have like a central store where those equipment is being purchased, or like a ministry where it's being purchased and distributed to the facility. We have facility procurement whereby your facility procure that equipment. We have bulk procurement where they are bought in some set numbers of, let's say, 5, 10, 15, depending on the use, and it's distributed to that organization. If you can hear me loud and clear, please type on the comment section. I can hear you. Please, can you hear me loud and clear? Just type on the comment section that I can hear you. Okay. 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 So next, what are the considerations for equipment acquisition when you want to acquire an equipment? What are the things you need to consider? We have what called wiring diagram. How many of us have seen a wiring diagram before? Wiring diagram is a diagram on a system that shows you all the wirings within the equipment. What it is. There are some verbs you don't even know what verbs is. But on the wire diagram, to show you verb 14 is, electrolyte flushing verb. This is so and so verb. This is so you say what you call the wire diagram. So if you have a wire diagram of an equipment, maybe on your system, with that you can know what that thing stands for. Next, we talk about software information. Next, you need to look at the part list, operation manual, installation responsibility. Are you the one that is going to install it, or the manufacturer or the vendors are going to install it? Manufacturer validation report, performance verification, trial period, training, warranty, local representative for service. There are some equipment they just send to you. After they sell that equipment to you, you will not even see them. But they don't even have any biomedical engineer within the country. So when you have issues, you have to now be doing remote. So all these things are things you need to consider. Consideration for equipment acquisition. So you don't just buy equipment because the equipment is new, or because they say the equipment can do X, Y, Z, or because you know the vendor, or maybe the vendor is going to, you have some kickback. That no, those things are not considerations for equipment acquisition. Or because you feel the equipment is fine, or because you think you need the equipment. Yes, there must be a need for a purchase of an equipment, but definitely you need to look at some of all these things when acquiring an equipment. What are the considerations for equipment donation? Maybe access laboratory need for the equipment, availability of reagent to provide, reagent and consumable, installation, commissioning, training, maintenance, availability of space. Now, in a language known to the staff, there are some equipment that they are in some languages, and if you maybe, for example, now that language you are used to and the equipment does not have that language, so you need to look at those things. Equipment installation is the next aspect of equipment management. You need to confirm from the vendor responsibility in writing, or is he the one that is going to install the equipment, or you're going to send someone to install the equipment? We advise that you don't install the equipment, let them install it. Have a checklist like the wiring, the space, the workflow, the document, job aid, installation record. So by the end of the installation, a biomedical engineer or whoever that install it, you must have an installation record. There should be what? An installation what? Record. Next, spare parts, vendor contact details. Verify the package content. Depend on the type of equipment and have the manufacturer install them. Make a copy of the software if it's applicable, if it is part of what? The equipment. Do not use prior to proper what? Installation and training. So when an equipment has not been properly installed and you have not been trained, do not use it. We have had cases whereby people get equipment and because they were not properly trained and the equipment got damaged, got blown off. Millions of dollars of equipment. So do not use prior to proper what? Installation what? And training. Then after installation, you have to update the inventory because in the equipment management, every equipment within your lab must be in the equipment inventory list. Let's say, for example, if it's a multi-lab, so you have multi-specialist lab, then if the equipment is in microbiology lab, you need to put it, this equipment is in microbiology lab, the location. The commissioning, calibration and verification. So there must be a calibration and verification report for that equipment. Those are part of what? The installation records. Maintenance program. Instruction for use. So the equipment should have an SOP. Training of the relevant staff. So there must be a proof that those staff are being trained. Remember I said, if you are not willing to be trained on the equipment, you shouldn't use the equipment. So everyone that wants to use the equipment, whether you're a director, whether you are a scientist, whether you must be trained, and there must be a proof of training. What are the proof of training? You could have a training certificate or a training record that you have been trained on that equipment. Is that well understood? Now, instruction for use. There should be a standard operating procedures for the equipment. This should be derived from the operational manual. Job aid and work instructions. We know job aids. Job aids are shorter forms of an SOP. What the maintenance form? So you should put a maintenance form for the daily maintenance, weekly maintenance, monthly maintenance, and maybe 6 monthly maintenance or periodic maintenance, depending on the manufacturer what instruction. So you need to develop what? A maintenance form for that what? Equipment, including a microscope. We know we have big equipment and small equipment. Those are two categories of what? Equipment in lab. We have big equipment and small equipment. Labels, under repair, list of approved users for that equipment also needs to what? Be available. Now, next is equipment what? Calibration. So that is the third aspect of it. Can you all hear me? Please, if you can hear me, type on the comment section. I can see someone say you can't hear me. Please, if you can hear me, type on the comment section. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, yes, and you can see my slide. Okay, that's beautiful. So next we talk about equipment calibration. Initial calibration is usually performed by the manufacturer or by the biomedical engineer. For calibration, use calibrator or standard and follow the manufacturer's instruction. Develop a calibration procedure. Establish and maintain the metrological traceability of the measurement of results. Metrological traceability of measurement of results. Now, after this calibration is done, let's look at type of calibrations. We have diagnostic calibration, we have auxiliary equipment, maybe diagnostic equipment, auxiliary equipment. What are the type of calibration? We have like assay calibration. Assay calibration is when you calibrate a particular analyte. a particular test. You could use a commercial calibrator. There's a leaflet for calibrator factors and those methodological traceability on that calibrator and that equipment, which you can use. Now, we have in-house use calibrator standard, train and competent personnel. You have to train people on calibration so that they understand how to use a calibrator. Then, for externally, you can also use an institution to calibrate your equipment. Example is an ISO 17025 lab. Let's say, for example, like in Nigeria now, we have an MLSCN calibration lab or an engineer who knows, let's say, for example, calibration of pipettes. So there are some calibration of those auxiliary equipment that you can do in-house. There are some that you need someone, either a biomedical certified engineer or an institution that is accredited to ISO 17025 to help you do what? That calibration. Then there should be a calibration certificate. So all your small equipment, your auxiliary equipment has to be what? Calibrated. Like timers, pipettes, centrifuge, etc. All biosafety cabinet, they have to be calibrated, and they must have a calibration certificate. If you use an equipment that had see the calibration date, the calibration certificate has expired, it's a non-conformity. Because how, for example, now that pipette you are using now, how do you know that pipette is pipetting the exact volume? So if it's not calibrated, so a lot of us, some of our facility, we don't even calibrate some of all those things. Some of us we do. So those equipment has to those auxiliary equipment has to be calibrated. Equipment verification and validation. So when we talk about verification, this we're going to also look at verification and validation during the course of this training. Provision of objective evidence that a given item fulfills a specified requirement. That's verification. While validation is a form of verification where the specified requirements are adequate for an intended use. Now, verification are usually done by the laboratory. Validation are usually done by the manufacturers. And can be done by the laboratory if they have the capacity to do that. Am I communicating? So verification versus validation. Information fully validated method used without modification have been validated before and information is being available. When you are doing that, that is called verification. A non-standard method, when you are doing a non-standard method, that is validation. Standard method used outside the intended scope. Particular method that is used outside the intended scope is validation. When you are doing laboratory design and you are developing method, that is validation. When you are validating a method subsequently that has been modified, that is validation. Now, I hope you get this. If you don't get this, there's a time we're going to treat validation and verification. So when something has been validated, you are not verifying it. You are not checking the information is available. You are not checking that information to see if it is what is being claimed. That is verification. But when you are doing a non-standard method, you are to do the new method. That is what validation. You are validating that method. Now, next slide. Equipment verification. You develop a protocol, a procedure for your verification. So there must be an SOP for verification. Test known sample for a verified machine or use a sample for known values. Let's say you can use a QC, you can use an EQA, you can use a certified reference material for what? For your verification studies. Now, as I said, if you don't know how to do a validation and verification, there's a topic that addresses that, which we are going to handle. Now, equipment maintenance, develop a written policies and procedures. Assign responsibility. You have to have a schedule maintenance. Troubleshoot as when needed. Then service and repair. Then you need to have a maintenance record. Very important. Your maintenance record has to be up to date. And it has to be done as at when due. The attitude of saying, okay, you have a maintenance, a daily maintenance, you push all the daily maintenance to weekly, that is a bad practice, and that can lead to equipment breakdown. Just like you having your car and you are not maintaining the car. One day the car is going to stop in the middle of the road. So maintenance of equipment is very, very important. It is the responsibility for the lab to have a documented procedure for what? Their equipment maintenance. Function checks. Monitor instrument parameters periodically, daily, weekly, monthly, and after instrument repair to see if it is working appropriately. Include some of those function checks could include incubator temperature, wavelength calibration, autoclave temperature chart, and etc. That's why sometimes when you are initializing an equipment, you see some of all these function checks. Preventive maintenance. These are routine maintenance that are done by what? Lab personnel. So you have to learn, whether you are a male, whether you are a female, lab personnel, it is not exclusive for male or any gender. Routine maintenance has to be done by the lab personnel. Service by equipment technician, like cleaning, adjustment, replacement of equipment, part, probes, and all those things, and keep spare part inventory so that when they are coming for periodic maintenance, they can say, okay, this is the part you have, this is the part you need. And some of us, when we talk about those maintenances, we allow the maintenance to be due before calling them. You have to know your lead time. The time is to take them. Maybe if they need to get a particular part, they need to order those parts. If the part is not readily available within the lab, you need to keep. So that's the responsibility of the lab management to ensure that these things is being done. Develop a preventive maintenance plan, the PM, for each equipment. For each piece of equipment established, you need to establish the routine maintenance plan and have it. The maintenance task, the frequency, the responsibility, and general maintenance records. Next, we look at equipment inventory management. Keep a log or register the instrument type, the model. So for every equipment, you should have the instrument, you should have an equipment inventory log. The instrument type, the model number, the serial number, unique identity, the software, and the version of that software. The location in the lab, the date it was purchased, the manufacturer and vendor contact information, calibration and service date, next calibration date, the service date, and the status of that equipment. All this you must have for each equipment within your facility. This is an example of equipment log. If you don't have it, this is an example of an equipment log. What are the essential equipment records? So we have what we call equipment record. Every equipment must have what? An equipment record, including your microscope. The installation and commission record, verification record, reference material record, measurement standard record, repair record, calibration and service record, the warranty record, the reagent record, the consumable record, the decontamination record. What was used to decontaminate it, all this must be there in your equipment record. Am I communicating? Then we have what we call the spare part inventory. Keep a record of the spare part, track the stock of the part, keep organized information about the cost and ordering, how long it will take, what's the lead time. You can work with the procurement team. Browse online for catalog or spare parts if needed. Okay, when troubleshooting an equipment problem, you need to check for what are the possible causes. So when the equipment have issues and you need to troubleshoot, what are the possible causes? Is it water? Is it electricity? Is it reagent? Is it specimen? Is it temperature? You have to check. Then when this is being done and you are not having a headway, you need to call what technical support. The manufacturer, the vendor, or the in-house biomedical engineer, if you have an in-house biomedical engineer or an external biomedical engineer department. Continuous service provision, you use that water, electricity, reagent, specimen, temperature, and the rest. You need to check all these things. And one thing that can also help you in troubleshooting equipment is to have an equipment error log. Equipment error log helps you to document every error that occur within an equipment and what was done to clear that error. You need to document it so that in case another lab personnel is there and such error happen, all he or she needs to do is to go to the equipment error log and check what if there have been similar equipment error, and he or she will see what was done. And if that error occur, the person can apply what was done, and that issue can be resolved. It can also, with that equipment error log, can also help you to do a trend analysis on the issues that have been associated with that equipment over a period of time. Am I communicating? Can you all hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So when resolving an equipment failure, it raises a non-conformity. Now we are going to talk about non-conformity event during the course of the training. So you raise a non-conformity. Non-conformity is any action that does not conform with a particular, that's a deviation from the process. Undertake the immediate action. So when we are discussing non-conformity, you understand what is immediate action. Immediate action are action that you take. A short action, an action that you take immediately to salvage the situation. During non-conformity, I will discuss that extensively. Evaluate the impact of the failure on the current work and previous work. Perform a root cause analysis. Now we have modules that address how to do a root cause analysis. You can use the 5 whys or other forms. Undertake a corrective actions. Update the established risk and the opportunity. That's under risk management. Monitor the effectiveness of the corrective action. Now, there's an error. You have to raise a non-conformity. You have to take immediate action. You have to evaluate the impact of that failure. You have to do a root cause analysis. So the success of the root cause analysis is to give you an understanding of what should be the corrective action. If the root cause analysis is not properly done, then the corrective actions will not be effective. So you have to also monitor for the effectiveness of that corrective action. Record of equipment problem, date the problem occurred in the equipment error log. Equipment removed from services, reason for breakdown or failure, corrective action that was taken, the date it was returned to use, or the time, change in maintenance or in function check if was applicable. Now, managing the dysfunctional equipment. When an equipment is not functional, do not use the equipment that is not functioning properly. Label the equipment that is dysfunctioning to prevent unintentional use and potential erroneous results. You can say not in use. You can see the way this equipment is labeled. Not in use or do not use. If an equipment is not functioning and it's in your workspace and it's not labeled non-functioning, that is what? A non-conformity, a non-conformance. Okay, service and repair. We look at the manufacturers. Laboratory must schedule routine manufacturer supplier services. Warranty may require repair handled by the manufacturer if that equipment is still under warranty. In-house trained, competent, and authorized biomedical service technicians can also be involved. So there are some organizations that have grown big to the extent that they have a biomedical service department that are in charge of such things. Now, when you are retiring an equipment or disposing of equipment, remember we are looking at what? The equipment management programs. Retiring equipment and disposing. Before retiring and disposing an equipment, ensure that that equipment is what? Decontaminated. You back up the data or you delete the data. Update the equipment inventory status. That means that equipment is no longer there. Salvaging potential spare parts. Physically remove. Follow laboratory or the national procedure for what? Disposal of what? Of such an equipment. Now, an equipment management program will address all the process of acquisition up to what? Disposal of the equipment. Appropriate documentation should be developed to ensure what? Proper management of that equipment. Record must be maintained to demonstrate that the lab is adhering to the equipment management program. Now, in other words, every aspect of this management you must have a documented procedure for addressing them. So an auditor can ask, or can say, okay, what is your equipment management policy? So you have to show a document where all these things. So it's not just by, okay, we do it or we know it, that's what we do. You have to show a proof that how this thing is being done and who should do it, and the record to prove that it is being done. A good equipment maintenance program provides a high-level performance and a greater confidence in the reliability of the result. It helps to fewer interruption of test performance, lower repair costs, and eliminate premature replacement of equipment. It increases safety for the laboratory workers, will result from a well-worked, maintained equipment. Now, please look at this. And this is going to be your assignment for this class. You develop a selection criteria for laboratory equipment procurement, or you develop an inventory log sheet for measuring instruments, or you develop a preventive maintenance program for measuring and equipment in your lab. What should be your strategy for disposing of non-functioning equipment? We discussed the advantage and disadvantage of following ways of acquiring equipment, purchasing, leasing, renting, and getting a donation. So you're expected to do 2 of this. Pick any 2 and work on and submit. 1, develop a selection criteria for your laboratory equipment procurement, or you develop an inventory log sheet for all measuring instruments, or you develop a preventive maintenance program for measuring equipment in your lab, or what should be our strategy, or what should be your strategy to dispose non-functioning equipment. So you're expected to answer any of these 2 and submit to us. Okay, just hold on.